Golden Black Live, segment 2. Tony Ursuline on Purdue's second-year wrestling coach, and we, as I told him off air here, that I have a soft spot in my heart for anyone that comes and does our show on the day of an event. You have a big match tonight. They're all big in the Big Ten, but the Boilermakers take on Nebraska. Tony knows a thing or two about Nebraska. That's where he came to Purdue from. But the Boilermakers will be in action tonight. Welcome to the show, and you got your game face on already. Doesn't matter what you have on; it really doesn't.
That's right. Most guys would say this is how I look every day. I always have my game face on.
Yeah.
So, but it's great to be here, and always happy to talk wrestling.
Yeah, and you have obviously Nebraska coming in, and we talked about 9 of the top 16 teams in college wrestling are from that conference that you happen to participate in. Where are you? You know, you're in your second year, and you've had some success in trying to break into that group. But how's your if you were going to evaluate your project and where you are, how do you feel about things?
I'd say from where I started a couple years ago, we've got a good foundation laid, and we're just trying to climb up through those teams that you want to move. I mean, I think right now we're 8-3 and 3-2 in the Big Ten, sitting 7th in the conference standings, and that's middle of the road. Obviously, we aspire for much higher, and so we've got still a ways to go. But I really feel like we have a good handle on the foundation, and so we can move forward aggressively from here.
So what is a match day like? How does it start? I mean, for a basketball team, they have a shoot around and they have a pregame meal, and then they tip the ball off. What is today like for you guys?
But typically, guys will get in the morning. They'll get a light workout in. Obviously, when you have weight classes, you have to make a weight, and so they'll come in and get a little bit of weight off and kind of get loose in the morning. Similar to a shoot around, we will have our last bit of warm up and team get together about an hour and a half prior to the duel, and that'll be the final prep, I guess, for match day.
Yeah.
Maybe guys cutting weight, or is that as much of a factor? It's not as much as it used to be, as I understand it, or is that managed differently than it was even when you competed, or how?
Yeah, it's much different.
Yeah.
For the better.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of rules put in place, and the resources are so much greater when you have nutritionists and strength and conditioning staff and all of these knowledgeable people around our guys who can advise them and mentor them, and so it's much better than it was. We've heard some stories in the past, of weight cutting, and by and large, you've seen those days go by the wayside.
Your situation too, when you deal, and you wrestled at what weight class when you're
177 pounds.
So how do you, are guys your size, do you naturally relate to guys at that 174 to 280, that even the bigger guys better, or do you find guys it's easier to coach guys closer to their weight class? Does that matter at all?
I guess typically I kind of was an upper weight coach because I did wrestling, and workout partners are so important. That's the interesting thing for a wrestling coach. I mean, my assistants still strap it on and go to work every day. They wrestle with the guys as I did when I was an assistant. So typically you do find yourself, within your weight classes or the upper weights. But even, style plays a large part too, or personality. I don't assign guys by weight class as far as coaching goes, we're position, maybe with football, but it's more personality and style where we assign coaches to the individual kids.
Yeah.
So you've been here for a few years after your 8-year stint as an assistant at Nebraska. Is it different taking on the Cornhuskers, or do you just sort of treat it at this point like they're any other really good program in the Big Ten?
Yeah, you have to. You always have to approach each match the same way, and so there'll be no love lost tonight when we start the duel. Certainly when it's done, we'll shake hands, and I enjoy those guys over there still. A lot of fond memories at Nebraska. My kids were born in Lincoln as well. So, but for those 2 hours, there'll be no love lost, and we're going to go to battle.
Yeah. Considering you want to get this program where the Iowas and Nebraskas and Penn State and everybody else is, how big a challenge is that when those programs are, established? They've been doing it for a long time, and Purdue's been around for a long time and had moments of success too. But how do you sort of get yourself in a position to be a consistent contender like those programs are?
Yeah, you really have to sell kids on what your vision for the program is, and that's huge. I mean, young people want to be a part of something. I've found since we've been here, and last year we had the 6th ranked recruiting class in the country, that if you can show kids the vision and the plan, they're excited about it. A lot of kids out there would love to do something for the first time, not just be another cog in the wheel. And I think kids get excited about that they can leave a mark on a program that's going to last for a long time, and that's what we've done, here. And of course, Purdue has tremendous things to offer as far as education and still being in the Big Ten. Having that benchmark, as we said, the Big Ten, it is brutal, but the benchmark is always in front of you, so you always know where you stand, where maybe if you were in another conference, you might be fooled into thinking we're ready, and you certainly aren't. So I'd rather be in the middle of the fire and know where we need to go.
When you go out and you had the 6th ranked recruiting class last year, in going out and looking at prospects, do you look for certain personality types? You look for talent, but they got to want to be a part of building something, I assume.
Absolutely, and that's what we look. We look for that strength of character. I mean, obviously, you have to have the talent. Then those guys have to have the goals and expectations for themselves, and then they got to have the work ethic behind it. But I want that strength of character where, when we line up across from Penn State or Iowa, some of these schools that are traditionally stronger, that it's not going to make a dent in them. If anything, they're going to get excited about that. You don't want to just wrestle the singlet, so I'm looking for that strength of character that, hey, we're excited about that, and let's go do it.
How many total scholarships do you have, and how many weight classes are there? How do you sort of this always amazes me with the Olympic sports, how the baseball team or the softball team or you guys or whatever divides this stuff up. For baseball purposes, you need a second baseman, a shortstop, you need all those positions. You need a bunch of weight classes, and you don't always have a whole lot of money to deal with. So how do you sort of work all that
That's
out
true.
for you guys?
We have 10 weight classes ranging from 125 pounds all the way up to heavyweight. We only have 9.9 scholarships.
Yeah.
And so the money that guys are on can differ vastly, all the way from, say, books and fees all the way up to everything. But certainly when you do that, there's a cost to your program. You might sacrifice depth if you put too much money into a weight class or things like that. So there really is a balancing act, and your needs, it's just like anything, it's year to year. If we need a 125-pounder, we're going to focus there. So it really is timing on how and who you're looking for, but you have to be very careful in your investment, with these young men. You got to be, certain about, their character, their work ethic, what they're going to bring to the table.
Recruiting base is interesting also because you obviously were involved in recruiting in Lincoln and been around this area in terms of that. Are you still, there's talent in the state of Indiana, but the wrestling is maybe not the prime sport, or this may be the prime area, but where do you focus on, and how much did your previous experience lay into your ability to make contacts for who you're trying to get now?
Yeah, I think having been an assistant for 17 years before I became a head coach really paid off. It's just recruiting contacts across the country. I had coached at a few different schools by then and had to coach in a variety of different situations. So that experience had taught me well and allowed me to have access to maybe better kids right away. But there's a hotbed of wrestling right here in the Midwest, so we don't have to go far. Our goal is always to keep the best Indiana kids in the state. There are good kids every year coming out without exception, so we want to keep them at home. But then Ohio, Illinois, I'm from Iowa. We just signed my first Iowa boy this fall. So we're in a hotbed, and kids don't have to travel far, like I said. So we've found that we've had access to great kids, fairly soon in the process.
And that process for you goes on. Because obviously their state tournaments are going on during the same time, but there is an AAU. Is there a summer circuit of wrestling that you also? When do you do most of your prospect evaluation?
You get a lot. Coming up in February and March is when the state tournaments traditionally are for the high school kids. So we'll be out a lot, February and March. But the summer is a very busy time for us. You see, if you're familiar with Olympic style wrestling, there's freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling. And so that would be kind of the AAU or club style that you're talking about. And so we're out all spring and summer watching the junior national championships and things like that. So you get a chance to really evaluate kids. That's the nice thing.
Okay, Purdue, Nebraska tonight, 1 o'clock also on Sunday. It just gets so much easier for me. It goes from 6th ranked Nebraska to 13th ranked Minnesota. Then Purdue travels to Illinois, and the Illini are only ranked 12th right now. So and then Wisconsin, who's really the Badgers at 16th, is for senior night on the 10th, I believe it is. So still some great chances, 3 more chances to see Purdue in action at home. The interesting thing, one thing, just looking at the schedule, and I been around sports for a while, but never. Why is there a difference between you compete on the 10th, your last match against Wisconsin, and then don't compete again in the Big Ten championships till the first weekend in March? Why the lag?
Well, there is one interesting event in there that we're hoping to qualify for. The National Wrestling Coaches Association is trying to set up, or has set up, a bowl championship series similar to what football does. We're trying to draw interest to the dual meet.
Yeah, okay.
And so there is a weekend, although not listed on the schedule because we haven't qualified yet for it, where the top 8 place winners from the Big Ten will duel conference champions from around the country. So it's a Big Ten against the rest of the country sort of
But you got to
event.
finish in the top 8 in duel.
In duel,
Okay.
yeah, and currently we sit in 7th. So we're in the hunt, we're in the mix, and so we're hoping to have that event, which is going to be anywhere in the 16th through the 18th, and we'll be given that assignment at a later date. So we've left that weekend open. Typically we do leave almost 2 weeks, though, from our last competition until Big Tens, just for peaking reasons.
Yeah.
You know, I like to have a chance to really go back into the gym, hammer out some things that we need to be our best at when going into the conference championships.
And in Purdue, obviously, we'll be traveling to Bloomington for the Big Ten championships the first week of March. One of the things I admire about you from afar initially is just your desire to get out and promote this program. I thought it was one of the great things was it October, when you were at, all of a sudden at the north end of this Ross-Ade Stadium, you guys were holding practice, and we got some great pictures from that, so that was awesome for our magazine. But tell me about how you've gone about promoting this program to a community that there's some tradition here, and there has been some national champions at Purdue. But how have you tried to embrace yourself not only with students but also the community?
Yeah, we're just trying to get out more to the casual fan. That we have a very loyal fan base, and that's wrestling across the country, as our national championships do very well. But the dual meet is one way we can do that. And so we're just trying to get out to the casual fan, places they might not be used to seeing us. So we thought practice on the patio over homecoming would be a great opportunity, and luckily the weather held out, and that went well. And then obviously we had a duel for the first time in over 12 years, I believe, in Mackey against IU. Yeah, and it was a great crowd. And so just to expose people who might not necessarily see wrestling all the time to something different, and let them hopefully fall in love with the sport.
Yeah, and it is an intense competition when you watch it, and it's not a 4-hour event. I mean, it goes promptly, and and they get after it in a big way.
Yeah, and we thought Mackey was a great environment for a competition. We are going to try to do a couple of events there next year. Hopefully, we have to wait to see what the basketball schedule looks like, but we would like to do 2 events in Mackey. I think our administration liked the way it turned out with wrestling as well. And I will float something now, something we're really thinking about. We're just in the initial stages, but we would like to try to get down on campus to Loeb or Elliott in a theater kind of a situation, and really create a spectacle of sorts. Get the guys up on the stage with the mat and have the crowd in a little different setting, and just create a different kind of a mood. So, we're just looking to do anything we can to pull people in and expose, like I said, maybe that casual fan who doesn't know enough about it yet.
Well, anything that gets said on Golden Black Live comes to fruition.
Oh yeah,
so
there are literally zillions of. We tell our advertising, we advertisers, we have well over. But the good thing is, Tony, this will be on here, good and bad. This will be on here from now to the end of time. This interview, because we archive everything, and that part is good. Your individual personnel. You've got guys. You've got and Amanda prepped me well. 6 ranked right now, and who's? And you're not going to single out one as a good coach. You won't do that. But who are some of the guys that we need to watch for that you think can make the biggest dent, not only in the Big Ten but potentially in nationals? Yeah,
I mean, we as she said, we have 6 guys that are ranked. I'd say Ben Thornton at 125 and Luke Welch at 33 are both very, very capable. Kyle Ersman, a senior at 141 as well, is one of those guys ranked. Alex Griffin, who was a national championship qualifier a year ago, is highly ranked this year and has had great success. And then a guy who's really on a roll right now, too, he was hurt the first part of the year for us, is Jake Morrissey.
He's 4-0 in the league right now.
Yeah, and he's beaten a couple of ranked guys with those 4 wins. So he is really starting to come around after getting off to a slow start because of that injury. So, but honestly, we have a lot of guys up and down the lineup who are capable. Our job here now is just to kind of refine our tactics. We're in shape and we're competing hard. We've got to clear up a few of these mistakes that have cost us, consistency-wise. As you mentioned, and we've said repeatedly, the Big Ten week in and week out is very tough. And we've got to fight for more consistency right now. We're going to battle hard, but we're losing on little things sometimes, and we've got about 2 months to clear those up.
The physical nature of this, I mean, I just am amazed that anybody can, whenever I was around guys that wanted to wrestle me, which would take 5 to 8 seconds for a pin, for how the heck how do you keep them in a level, because it is so physically demanding. I mean, at least the way I envisioned, I was a golfer and a basketball player, and I was really comparing this. How do you keep them at a level where, you know, you don't want them to peak too soon? You obviously, it's clear where you want them to get to, the Big Tens and the Nationals, but
Yep.
How does that? What's your magic
I mean,
potion?
you always draw out a plan, right? You start with the national championships and you work backwards to the start of the year. That's how I do it. But so much of it is having a handle on your group and reading your guys, even if it's for your individual guy, because we compete as individuals. Yes, there's team points scored, but each individual goes out and wrestles on their own. And so there's times when, you know, you might have to back off, you know, on the team or that guy and say, hey, take the day or do this or do that, you know, do something a little different. And so it's really knowing your kids and reading them and giving them what they want. You've got to be able to push hard when you can, and at the same time, something we talk about is it's recovery is as important as working hard with today's, you know, as much as science and everything, it's understanding, like, sleep is training. You know, we talk a lot to our guys, sleep, get to bed, guys. You know, we're going to work hard and you're cutting weight, so you're doing all this unlimited calories. So your rest, you know, your fatigue level, you have to manage those things. And so we talk a lot about recovery as well.
Sleep was never a problem for me.
I just can't imagine. That's the thing that gets me the most is how these guys do it. I want to. My whole rationale for exercise, even at age 57, is still I'm gonna so I can eat. Guys, it's just amazing that they can do that the way they do. Well, I wish you guys well. We thank you so much for joining. Reminder tonight at the IAF, it will be at 7 p.m. The Boilermakers take on Nebraska. And that will be a Hammer Down Cancer night, and that is a good venue, though. It's still a good venue to have an intense meet. Then, of course, Purdue at 1 o'clock on Sunday against Minnesota. And if you're watching this on the internet and you can't get here for that, of course, it's on BTN Plus as well. And then the last home match of the year against Wisconsin on the 10th, and we wish you well, and thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
No, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, we will take a short break, have Jerry Palm who will join us talking RPI and more for our last segment of Gold and Black Live.